Hello and welcome back to Lesson 1, Part 4. Today's class is all about the differences we see in pronunciation between UK and US English. In the last lesson, we were looking at all of the different accents and dialects that you can hear around the UK, and that there isn't just one way of speaking British English. Both me and Laura are from Yorkshire, so we will sound different to people from other areas of the country. Now, neither of us has a particularly strong accent, but it will still be different to people from other places in the UK. Even though this is true and there are lots of British accents, hopefully you'll also remember in the last lesson we looked at an accent called RP, or received pronunciation, and that this is the accent that most people identify as being the standard British accent. So, over the next few lessons, we're going to compare RP, or received pronunciation, with American English. And we're going to start this comparison in this lesson with the differences in vowel sounds between American and British accents. Now, this is going to be useful to you for a couple of different reasons. The first is that you can start to use some of the sounds that you learn in this video if you want to sound more British in your everyday English conversations. And the second one, and I personally think this one is the most important, is that it will help you be able to work out what British people are actually saying. I mean, if you've previously only learned American English, then learning these differences will really help the next time you meet a British person or see a British character in a movie or film, because you'll have more chance of understanding their accent and being able to follow along with what they're saying. Now, there are quite a lot of differences between British and American English. But if there's one thing that we can both agree on, it's that we both like to make jokes about each other's accents. Now, British people really like to make jokes about American accents, and American people really like to make jokes about British accents. And this isn't a new thing either. This has been going on for years and years and years. One really famous example, which I've just put up, is a song called Let's Call the Whole Thing Off that was first sung by Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers back in the golden age of Hollywood in the 1930s. The song is all about the differences between the way the two main characters speak, and the most famous line in it is, "You say tomato and I say tomato," which is something that people will often quote when they're talking about the differences between British and American English, even now almost 100 years after the song was released. It is still really difficult to compare British and American accents though, and the reason is, just like there isn't only one British accent, there also isn't only one American accent either. The USA is a huge country with a population of over 300 million people, so you're always going to hear a lot of different American accents. However, also like British, there is one American accent that people identify as being a kind of standard American accent. And it's the accent that you'll often hear on American national news programs, as well as a lot of other TV programs and movies. Now, we call this accent General American. So if you think of an American accent in your head and how it sounds, or think of the kind of American accent that you were taught in school, you're probably thinking of General American. So in this lesson, when we're comparing British and American English accents, we'll be using received pronunciation for the British English and General American for the American English. I'll just be calling them RP and GA though for the rest of the lesson, because that's what they're normally shortened to. As I said, in this first class, we're going to be looking at the difference in vowel sounds between these two accents. And in the next class, we're going to be looking at some of the major differences between consonant sounds. So, why have I chosen to look at vowel sounds first? Well, all words need a vowel sound. Even words that don't have a vowel, like the word shy, for example. The letter Y in that word still gives it a vowel sound. I, shy. Because of this, if there are any changes in vowel sounds between two different accents, it will have a really big impact on the way those two accents sound. We just need to remember though that as we go through these differences, that we are only comparing RP and GA, and that these differences won't work for all British and American accents. The other thing to remember is that even though I am British, I do not speak with an RP accent. I speak with a Yorkshire accent. So when you're hearing me talking normally like this, I'm speaking with a Yorkshire or what's sometimes called a general northern accent. When I give the example words and sentences in this lesson, I will use an RP accent to demonstrate that for you. I can't do an American accent, I can't do a general American accent, so I've brought in my friend Kyle to help me with the American accent parts. He'll be doing the examples in general American, and I'll do the examples in RP throughout these next few lessons. Right, so let's have a look at the differences we're going to be looking at in today's class. Now, there are three major differences in vowel sounds between general American and received pronunciation. And you'll hear these all the time. So if you're listening to a British or an American speaker, you'll really be able to notice these differences very frequently. We're also going to look at two smaller differences that you'll hear far less often, but are still useful to know. Okay, so our first vowel is the letter O, particularly how it's pronounced in words like go. Now, I'll get Kyle to give you some examples first in a general American accent, and then I'll repeat them in a received pronunciation or RP accent and see if you can hear the difference. Okay, let's listen to Kyle.
Go, no, crow, don't, alone.
Right, and now I'll repeat those with an RP accent. Are you ready? Go, no, crow, don't, alone. Could you hear the difference there? I'm guessing you probably could. With the RP accent, you need to make sure your mouth is nice and round and your tongue is right at the bottom of your mouth. Like this. Go, go, oh, oh. You have a try. Okay, and also just to prove that the RP accent isn't the same as all British accents, I'm going to say all those words again one more time in a Yorkshire accent, just so you can hear the difference. Okay. Go. No. Crow. Don't. Alone. Now, I'm guessing you could hear the difference again there. Now, you don't need to learn the Yorkshire accent, but I just put that in there to show you that RP is not the same as all other British accents. Right, next we're going to look at an example sentence. We'll get Kyle to say it first in GA, and then I'll repeat it in RP. Okay, here's Kyle.
I don't know how to make it go. I don't know how to make it go.
I don't know how to make it go. I don't know how to make it go. Right, so let's have a look at our next major difference in vowel sounds. It also applies to the letter O, in this case like in the word hot. Now, sometimes this can also apply to words that use the letter A as well, like in want. But this is much less common than with the letter O. Okay, so let's listen to Kyle give some example words in GA using this sound.
Hot dog. Cost. Gone. What?
And now I'll say them in RP. Hot dog. Cost. Gone. What? Okay, could you hear the difference there? Now, to me, the big difference here is that the O in British English still sounds like an O. It makes an O sound. Whereas in American English, it can almost sound a bit like it's the letter A. So let's listen to an example sentence and see if you can hear the difference in that sound. Okay, let's listen to Kyle.
The cost of a hot dog has gone up this year. The cost of a hot dog has gone up this year.
And now in RP. The cost of a hot dog has gone up this year. The cost of a hot dog has gone up this year. Could you hear the difference there? You should have heard it in the words cost, hot, dog, and gone. Before we move on to our next major difference, I just want you to have a guess at how you think you might pronounce this word. Now, it has O in the middle as the vowel sound, so it could be either of the sounds we've just learned. So, which do you think it is? Have a guess. If you used the first sound, the O sound that we learned, and said scone, you'd be correct. If you said the O sound and said scone, you'd also be correct, because this is a word that no British person can agree on. About 50% of the country say it is pronounced scone, and about 50% of the country say it is pronounced scone. And it's something that we really can't agree on and will argue about all the time. So remember, you can say either, but you'll always find British people who disagree with you. Right, on to our next major difference. And this one is with the letter A, like in the word last. So we'll get Kyle to say some example words first in GA. Let's have a listen.
Pass, path, dance, grass.
And now in RP. Pass, path, dance, grass. Now, could you hear the difference there? The American A is a much shorter sound, and it's much more how you would imagine an A to sound, an A sound. But in the British English, it's a much longer sound, and it makes it almost sound like you're trying to say the letter R. Pass, pass, R, R. You see how it almost sounds like you're trying to say the letter R? Right, let's listen to an example sentence.
You need to take the path on the right to get past the grass. You need to take the path on the right to get past the grass.
You need to take the path on the right to get past the grass. You need to take the path on the right to get past the grass. Okay, hopefully you picked out all the words there. You should have picked out path, past, and grass. Now, British English doesn't always use this really long A sound. Sometimes we use the shorter A sound like American English. So how is it we know when to use this long A sound like in the word last? Well, if the letter A is followed by a sound that makes the s, f, n, or sound, then normally we'll use that long A sound. That's why last has it, because after the A we have a s, last. But there are still some exceptions to this rule. So words like maths, athlete, and ant are pronounced just like that. Maths, athlete, ant. They're not pronounced maths, athlete, aren't. So that's all of our 3 major differences completed. Now, if you remember at the beginning of the lesson, I said we were also going to look at 2 smaller differences in vowel sounds. So let's look at the first one of those. It's the letter I, like in the word privacy. Now, this can also apply sometimes to the letter Y, like in the word dynasty. Can you hear how those sound almost the same even though they have a different letter? Privacy, dynasty. They've both got that I sound at the beginning. Now, in RP English, sometimes that I sound that you hear in American English can become an I sound. So it would become privacy or dynasty. So how are you supposed to know when to make this change between American and British English? Well, there's 2 rules that you can follow to know when to use that short I sound instead of the long I sound you hear in American English. The first is when a word ends in the letter Y and has the I sound in the first syllable, like in the example we were looking at, privacy and dynasty. So let's have a listen to Kyle first with a general American accent, and then I'll repeat them in British English.
dynasty, privacy, simultaneously,
dynasty, privacy, simultaneously. Hopefully you could clearly hear the difference between that I sound in the GA example, like the letter I, and the I sound that I did in the received pronunciation accents. Now the other time we make this change is in words that have the suffix ization at the end, like the word civilization. Let's listen to Kyle give some examples in American English, and then we'll do them again in RP.
Civilization, authorization, modernization,
Civilization, authorization, modernization. Now, you could probably hear that at the beginning of that suffix, ization, instead of saying ization, I say isation. Civilization, isation, civilization. It's quite a big difference, but as I said, you don't come across it that often. So now let's have a look at an example sentence using lots of words that use this sound. Listen to Kyle first.
Modernization has led to a loss of privacy in some civilizations. Modernization has led to a loss of privacy in some civilizations.
Modernization has led to a loss of privacy in some civilizations. Modernization has led to a loss of privacy in some civilizations. Now let's have a look at our second, smaller difference in vowel sounds, and this one is with the letter E, like in the word evolution. Now, in American English, you'll hear that it's a short E sound, eh. But when we say this in RP, we extend the E sound like you're just saying the letter E. So we would say evolution. Right, let's listen to some example words.
Evolution, epoch, predecessor.
Evolution, epoch, predecessor. Hopefully you could hear the difference there. You can even try doing it yourself. Instead of making the eh sound that you would normally make when you see the letter E, you just say it like you're saying the letter E. Evolution, epoch, predecessor. Now let's listen to an example sentence using that sound.
Our evolutionary predecessors come from a different epoch. Our evolutionary predecessors come from a different epoch.
Our evolutionary predecessors come from a different epoch. Our evolutionary predecessors come from a different epoch. The thing to remember with this one is that RP only uses this long E sound when the letter E appears in the first syllable of the word. Great job, we've got through all of our 5 differences, and now it's time to do some practice. So I'm going to give you some examples of everyday conversations, and in each one it will be looking at one of the 3 major differences between GA and RP. So we'll listen to Kyle say each of the sentences once, and then we'll listen to me say the sentence. And what I'd like you to do is see if you can identify which words have the difference we're looking for. Okay, so the first one is going to feature words with the O sound that we learned first. Okay, let's listen to Kyle say the conversation.
Are you going to go for that promotion? No, I don't think so.
Are you going to go for that promotion? No, I don't think so. Are you going to go for that promotion? No, I don't think so. Right, could you hear which words had that O sound in RP? Let's see how many you got. You should have picked out going, go, promotion, no, don't, and so. I think the really difficult one there was promotion, because it's the second O that has the long O sound, not the first one. Okay, let's have a look at our next one. Let's listen to Kyle first. This time you're listening for the short O sound, the O sound. Right, let's get started.
How do you want your coffee? Hot, with a drop of milk, please.
And here it is in RP. How do you want your coffee? Hot, with a drop of milk, please. How do you want your coffee? Hot, with a drop of milk, please. Okay, how many did you spot this time? Let's see if you got them all. The words you should have picked out are want, coffee, hot, and drop. I think the difficult one there was probably want, because it has an A rather than an O, so it's easy to miss. Hopefully you got them all. Right, let's have a look at our third difference, that long A sound that sounds almost like you're saying the letter R. R. Okay, let's listen to Kyle first.
This craft beer is really strong. I couldn't finish my glass. I'll just have a half then.
Okay, and here it is in RP. This craft beer is really strong. I couldn't finish my glass. Oh, I'll just have a half then. This craft beer is really strong. I couldn't finish my glass. I'll just have a half then. Okay, so let's have a look and see if you got them all. The words you should have picked out are craft, glass, and half. Now, you might be wondering why the person says, I'll just have a half. That's because in the UK, when people order beer, we order it in pints. And you can either order a full pint, or you can order a half pint. And when you order a half pint, this is often just shortened to a half. So you can say, I'll have a half of beer. Really great job if you got them all. And now that we've finished our practice, we can move on to our phrase of the day. And today it's you say tomato and I say tomato. Yes, it's that line that we learnt from the song right at the beginning of the lesson. And this phrase is often shortened simply to tomato, tomato. But what does it mean when someone says this? If someone says tomato, tomato to you, what do they mean? Well, what they mean is that they have a disagreement with someone, but that they don't think the agreement is that important. So, for example, maybe two people are talking about their favourite British band, and one of them likes the Beatles the best, and one of them likes the Rolling Stones the best. Now, they don't agree, but it's not that important, so they could just say tomato, tomato, or we agree to disagree. Okay, so let's have a look back over what we learned today. We started to compare British received pronunciation and general American, and we started by comparing the differences in vowel sounds between those two accents. We learned 3 major differences and 2 smaller differences that you see less often. And in the next lesson, we're going to be comparing the major differences between consonant sounds in received pronunciation and general American. So I'll look forward to teaching that next time. See you then.